dismay, search and rescue teams in the Appalachian National Forest found a shattered smartphone lodged in a narrow rock crevice, 100 feet below a steep cliff. The device was protected by a heavy-duty OtterBox case, which kept the internal memory intact despite the fall. Here is what this device recorded in its final hours. And these are the words left behind by its owner before he vanished completely. My battery is at 15% now. I don't know if anyone will ever hear this, but I have to leave my testimony. My name is Mark, and I thought a hiking trip in the Appalachians would just be a routine getaway to escape the grind of life in Philadelphia. On the third day, I decided to go off-trail, looking for the total isolation, but I realize now that I made a fatal mistake. I went so deep into the woods that I lost all cell service, and that's when I started noticing things a regular tourist wouldn't. The trees here aren't normal. They're so thick they block out the sun, and the forest floor smells like something is buried beneath it. I saw strange symbols carved into the oak trunks with a knife, fresh wounds still oozing resin, like markers to claim territory or a warning. I stopped to catch my breath, and when I looked back, I felt like I was being watched. It wasn't just a feeling. I heard a twig snap, followed by the sound of heavy, labored breathing. It didn't sound like any wild animal. It was distinct, ragged human breathing. Gray clouds gathered over the peaks, and the fog started creeping in like a snake, blanketing everything in a pale, ghostly gray. I tried to make it back to the main trail I'd left hours ago, but I noticed the carved symbols were repeating with an eerie consistency, as if they were guiding me somewhere or warning me that I was already inside someone's hunting ground. My heart started pounding with every step. In this place, sound travels for miles, and every step I took felt like announcing my position. I pulled out my paper map to check my bearing, but I was shocked to find that the area I was in wasn't clearly marked. It was like a blank spot forgotten by the world. Then, I saw it on the horizon over one of the ridges, a faint trail of smoke rising slowly. It looked like a campsite, but I knew I was in a restricted area where camping was prohibited for security reasons. Every instinct was screaming at me to run the other way, but exhaustion had taken its toll, and the fog was so thick I'd completely lost my sense of direction. I realize now that these mountains aren't just rocks and trees, they're one giant trap, and I may have walked myself into a place no one ever comes back from. But I approached the smoke cautiously, hoping to find a woodsman or someone seeking shelter. But what I saw was a waking nightmare. There was an old, dilapidated trailer covered in black plastic tarps, surrounded by a fence of barbed wire that looked like it was meant to keep something in, not keep people out. There were no animals, no birds chirping, just a terrifying silence hanging over the place like a graveyard. I crept closer, and I saw something that froze the blood in my veins. Worn-out shoes, open backpacks, scattered clothes that looked like they belonged to different people, all of them human trophies. I realized then that this wasn't a camp. It was a graveyard for the missing hikers I'd read about in the news. Suddenly I heard the sound of a metal lock clicking inside the trailer. I froze behind a massive oak trunk and grabbed my phone. No service, as usual in this terrain. A man stepped out of the trailer. He wasn't carrying a gun, he was carrying a woodsman's axe, and his face was covered by a filthy rag. He started scanning the ground, sniffing the air like a hunting dog picking up a scent. He moved with an unnatural agility for a man his age, gliding over roots and rocks without making a sound. I saw him stop at the exact spot I'd been standing minutes before. He looked down, then looked straight toward my tree. It wasn't a coincidence. He'd been tracking me since I entered the area. He started walking toward me, slowly, dragging the axe along the tree trunks like he was marking his prey. I couldn't breathe. My mind was screaming at me to run, but my feet felt rooted in the mud. I realized this man lives here, kills here, and hides his victims in this eternal fog, and the law is hundreds of miles away beyond these high peaks. He was smiling under his mask, a smile I saw in his cold, unblinking eyes, as if he'd been waiting for a new visitor for a long time. My phone battery is blinking red now. 8%. I'm not recording this to call for help. I know no one will get here in time. I'm recording this so everyone knows these woods aren't safe, and there are human monsters living among us, far from the city lights. I saw how he touched that axe, how he sniffed the air. This man doesn't kill for money or theft. He kills because this place has given him the power to toy with other people's lives. I can hear him now, talking to himself in gibberish like he's performing some old ritual before the final hunt begins. I can't stay here. I started running with everything I had, not looking back. Tree branches scratched my face, and the sharp mountain rocks tore through my boots. The sound of his footsteps behind me never stopped. Steady, rhythmic, and constant, like he never gets tired. I entered a steep, rocky slope where the fog was hugging the ground. Suddenly, the sound of his footsteps vanished. I stopped to listen, thinking I had lost him, but then I heard a voice coming from above, from behind the rocks I'd just climbed. He was humming an old folk tune, his voice echoing through the mountains like a terrifying chorus. He wasn't chasing me. He was herding me toward a well-known cliff in these mountains, an area that ends in a sheer drop to certain death. I tried to change course, but I found myself trapped against a vertical rock wall. I was pinned between him and certain death. He emerged from the fog, calm, wiping his axe, and looked at me like I was just a minor hurdle in his day. He didn't say a word. He raised the axe, and I backed up until my heel touched the edge of the cliff. I looked down. Pitch black. No bottom in sight. I looked at him and saw my own fear reflected in his eyes. I realized these mountains choose their victims. He pushed me, not with his hand, but with his overwhelming presence and a sudden move. My phone slipped out of my pocket into a rock crevice while I was trying to cling to the cliff, and I can't get it back, but I'll leave it here. Maybe someone will find it someday. He's closing in. There's no way out. I'm gonna jump before he touches me. At least I'll choose how I die. If you're hearing this, stay away from the unmarked trails in the Appalachians. They're watching from between the trees, and they're waiting for their next visitor. The battery's dying. Goodbye. It was past 1 a.m. when I turned onto Highway 128. I just wanted to reach the campsite before dawn, but the GPS in my car started acting strangely. It kept rerouting me onto unpaved dirt roads. I didn't think much of it until the signal died completely. Suddenly, my headlights flickered and died, not due to a mechanical failure, but because someone had precisely cut the wiring while I was stopped to move a fallen branch just minutes earlier. The moment I sat back in the driver's seat, I realized I was trapped in absolute darkness. There wasn't a light for miles. Panic surged through me, so I grabbed my phone to call for help, but the screen didn't just show no service. It displayed a chilling message. Local network blocked. That's when it hit me. I wasn't lost. I was lured into a technical dead zone where hunters use signal jammers to isolate their prey. Then I heard the distinct click of the car's rear door unlocking. I froze. No one had opened the door, but the dashboard light indicated it had been engaged. I looked into the rearview mirror, and though the seat was empty, a heavy, unfamiliar smell of tobacco smoke filled the cabin. I began to realize that the person hunting me wasn't just some random maniac. This was someone who knew how to disable my technology, how to control my path, and how to invade my privacy without leaving a fingerprint. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, and I knew for a fact I wasn't alone in this car, and I wasn't alone on this mountain. I decided to jump out of the car and bolt into the woods, but that was my fatal mistake. As soon as I hit the ground, blinding high-beam spotlights erupted from another vehicle, parked just a few yards away in the dark. No one stepped out. Instead, a broadcast speaker mounted on its roof began blaring a looped recording of humans screaming, a sound so realistic it sent chills down my spine. It was bait. They used a fake distress call to lure me out of my metal fortress. While I stood there, blinded by the glare, I saw a shadow dart quickly between the trees. Didn't run. It walked with confident, deliberate strides, holding a small tablet in its hand, monitoring a heat map of my movement through the woods. This wasn't just a hunt anymore, it was a field test for a new system. I scrambled behind a massive boulder, gasping for air, and pulled out my work phone, which had a spare battery. I tried to type a single text to my wife, but the message wouldn't send. Instead, my contact list began scrolling on its own, as if the person watching me was hacking the device in real time to read every word I typed. A new message popped up on the screen. "No need to try. We know exactly where you are." At that moment, I realized my terror wasn't just about a blade or a gun. It was that I had become nothing more than data in the hands of someone using technology to psychologically torture me before the kill. They were tracking me with surgical precision via the GPS in the car I'd abandoned, and they were shining their lights on me not to find me, but to watch me break. Now I'm writing these words in my notes app while crouched in a shallow pit I dug with my own hands beneath the roots of a massive tree. The sound coming from the distant car has stopped, and the silence that has blanketed the woods is far more terrifying than the noise. I realize they don't need the bait anymore. They've cornered me within a 10-yard radius. I can hear them now. They aren't yelling, they're speaking quietly, exchanging notes about my elevated heart rate, as if they're conducting a scientific experiment. One of these killers just walked past me. He didn't attack. Instead, he placed a small recording device right next to the tree I'm hiding behind and whispered into it. "Victim number 42 showed less resistance than expected. The algorithm will be updated for the next attempt." I was just a number in their ledger. I knew then there was no way out, no law that could reach this place, as it sits entirely outside of any coverage or oversight. I've put my phone into airplane mode to kill their tracking, and I'm burying it here, hoping that someone, someday, will find this drive. I can hear their boots circling me now. I can't run, I can't hide, and I can't even scream. I'm staying right here in this darkness, waiting for a fate that was calculated with agonizing precision. If you're reading this, know that these people aren't just killers. They are architects of death who own the very technology we trust, and they use it to hunt us down in the places we think are safe. They've stopped talking. I can hear the slide of a weapon being pulled back. Goodbye. In the files of the Chicago Police Department, there is no case quite as chilling as the Apartment 30 mystery. No body was ever found, there were no signs of a break-in, and absolutely no one was seen leaving the building. The only thing recovered was the apartment's intercom system, which had recorded continuous audio for 72 hours before the battery finally died. This is the story of Ethan, who discovered that the safety of his own home was nothing but a fragile illusion. It started as a minor nuisance. I lived on the 4th floor of an old, pre-war building in downtown Chicago, where the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbors' every breath. But about a week ago, something changed. I started finding things in my apartment that didn't belong to me. A warm cup of coffee on the table, my bed sheets rearranged, or the scent of cheap men's cologne lingering in the hallway. At first, I convinced myself I was losing my mind from work stress. I changed the locks and installed a small security camera at the entrance. On the third night, I was checking the live feed from work when I saw something that froze my blood. No one had broken in. Instead, I watched the large kitchen ventilation duct slide open. A man crawled out. He wasn't wearing a mask, he was wearing my clothes, my own shirt that I'd lost just last week. He moved through my apartment with chilling ease. Not to steal, but to live. He went to the fridge, grabbed a carton of milk, and sat on my sofa, staring at the front door as if he were waiting for me to come home. That's when the horrific truth hit me. This man wasn't just coming and going. He was living in the hidden spaces between the building's walls, watching me, studying my habits, and slowly replacing me. The terror wasn't just in his presence. It was knowing he watched me sleep, touch my things, and breathe my air while I foolishly believed I was safe behind a locked door. I couldn't call the police. I knew how it would sound. Some crazy guys breaking into my place. With zero evidence of a forced entry, I started noticing my apartment changing. My family photos on the wall were replaced with pictures of people I didn't know. All my wall clocks had stopped at exactly 3:36, and a pile of human hair had begun to accumulate under my bed. The psychological pressure was gnawing at my sanity. I couldn't sleep. I'd sit in the bathroom with the door bolted shut, clutching a kitchen knife, listening to his footsteps outside. He started talking to me through the walls. His voice was a whisper, terrifyingly familiar, and perfectly mimicking my own. He'd say, "I don't want to hurt you, Ethan. I just want to be you. You're not doing anything with your life anyway, so I'll take it from here." This wasn't just a stalker. This was a behavioral clone. He knew every detail of my life, my passwords, my memories, even my deepest failures. I started to wonder, am I actually Ethan? Or am I just someone else who was replaced a long time ago? The stress reached a point where I began to doubt my own memory. Every time I tried to unlock the door to flee, something blocked me. Sometimes the hallway was unnaturally dark, and other times I'd hear my neighbors screaming inside their units. But when I pounded on their doors, I found nothing. The whole building had turned into a maze designed to break me. I was cut off from the outside world. This apartment complex had become a lawless world where I was the only prey. On the final night, I decided I would get out no matter the cost. I smashed the window with a heavy chair, the glass shattering with a deafening crash that echoed through the entire building. I climbed out onto the exterior railing with trembling hands, but what I saw shattered my hope. The iron fire escape that had been there for decades was gone, cut cleanly from its foundation. Below me in the dark, there were only rusted cars and an eerily empty street. At 3 a.m., as if the entire city had fallen asleep or died. I scrambled back inside, panicked, and before I could steady myself, I found the man standing in the middle of the living room. He was wearing my suit, carrying my briefcase, and looking at me with a calm, predatory smile. I tried to attack him with the knife, but he was faster. He struck me hard across the temple, sending me crashing to the floor. Then I felt a sharp needle pierce my neck. My body suddenly went heavy. My legs turned to lead, and my arms wouldn't respond. He whispered in a cold, steady voice, "It's time for the switch, Ethan. I know your schedule better than you do. I know how to smile at your boss and how to lie to your mother when she asks about your life. I deserve this life more than you do." He dragged me toward the closet with terrifying strength. pushed aside a hidden wooden panel that had been part of the building's old service and ventilation network for decades, and shoved me into the dark, narrow crawl space. It was suffocating, the air thick with rot, dust, and human hair. I heard faint breathing, other people trapped there for months or years, alive but bound or sedated, their eyes glued to tiny holes in the plaster, watching their own stolen lives play out. I'm here now, in the suffocating dark, listening to my own breathing slow down. I can hear him humming softly in my room, making my bed, getting ready for a new day. The phone that's recording this is still running, capturing everything. No one will ever come looking for me because Ethan hasn't disappeared. Ethan goes to work every morning with a smile, embraces his mother, and continues his life perfectly. And me? I'm just a dead detail, and the wall of an apartment that no one knows is a graveyard for souls still struggling to breathe.